You know, if I could sit down with my 20-year-old self for just 10 minutes, there's a handful of things I'd tell him that would have saved him years of mistakes, worry, and frustration. Unfortunately, life doesn't work that way. So instead, I'm sharing them with you. I have many more planned, so I hope you'll join me for the ride where I tell you about what I've learned in my life as a police detective sergeant, a business owner, an author, a songwriter, a builder, and other experiences that I've enjoyed. The very first thing that I wish somebody had told me is don't loan money. Now, I've loaned money to at least 3 people, some family, some friends, never received a dime back. The first one was my oldest son. When he was in his 20s, he had gotten out of the military. He was working for an airlines in Denver, and they had offered him a job, I guess a better job in Atlanta. And along with his buddy, he wanted to move to Atlanta, but he hadn't saved any money. So he asked me if I'd loan him $1,000 to move to Atlanta. I didn't really have the money, but I loaned it to him. Never saw a dime back. I asked him several times, when are you going to start paying me? Because he promised me he's going to pay me $100 a month until it was all paid back. Never received a dime. The next time was one of my stepdaughters. She had moved from California with her boyfriend and new baby, and she had moved to Cripple Creek, Colorado, where I was at. And they wanted to rent an apartment or a condo, but it was over $1,000 deposit, which they hadn't saved again. So I loaned it to them. They said they'd give me back $100 a month until it was paid back. Of course, a couple of months later, they had separated. He had gone back to California, and she was living by herself with the baby. So I had to kind of forget about that. The next one was some friends of ours when I lived in Massachusetts. She owned a business and she was trying to get it started, and she had a payment coming up that she couldn't make, and she needed more supplies. We really hadn't worked out a schedule for repayment, but they were our best friends. They had been our best friends forever. So we loaned them $10,000. I actually had to borrow the money to give them the $10,000. And of course, we never saw that. They filed bankruptcy a few months later, and that stuck us with the $10,000. So the next thing I wish I had known is don't borrow money for a business under a business loan. Under a business loan is different than a personal loan in that in a business loan, they can recall the loan at any time for any reason. They don't need a reason. They can just recall it. Now, we had been making payments on this loan for probably 3 or 4 years, and we never missed a payment. We were never late. All of a sudden, we get a thing in the mail saying they needed to recoup the loan right now. Now, this was during the S&L crisis back in the 80s and 90s, where approximately a third of S&L savings and loan places didn't survive. They went under. Ours was a large bank. They didn't go under, but the feds had told them that they had too much money out in loans and they needed to recall some. So they recalled ours. The person across the street from us, the business, he had a used car dealership. They recalled his too. He went under. This caused us to file bankruptcy for our business, for our house, everything. We lost everything. And so that's why I say never borrow money under a business loan if you can avoid it. The third thing, don't marry young. Wait at least a year after you think you want to get married to get married. Now, I got married at 18 years old Back then, that wasn't unheard of. That was in the early 70s. It was practically a thing. People got out of high school. A lot of them got married. Some of them went to college and then got married. Some of them got married in college. I should have known, but no one ever told me. No one ever discussed it with me that getting married young was tough, was real tough. Now, that marriage lasted about 5 years, and we had a lot of problems. So if you're young now, live with the woman, date her for a year, whatever, but don't get married that young. Wait a while, and you'll be glad that you did. The big one, number 5, never start smoking. I've been smoking for 60 years, haven't been able to quit. Back when I started, I was about 14 years old. My dad smoked. My mom didn't. But our house was small, and the house was always full of smoke. It never bothered me then. I didn't even think anything about it. I've had 2 sisters die already that were younger than I am. Now, back then, even when I went in the military at 18, I was drafted in the Sea Rats and whatnot. They gave you free cigarettes. You go to the PX, they were about $2.50 a carton. Everything was cheap. Hey, you had the Marlboro Man and all these commercials on television and everything. There was nothing about smoking that we know today that it causes cancer. Now, I'm cancer free. I get my lung scan every year. There's nothing there. Whether it lasts, I don't know. We'll see. But I've tried to quit. I don't know how many times. I've never been able to do it. Probably just don't have the intestinal will to do it. I don't know. The next one, don't make hasty decisions. Hasty decisions will inevitably cause trouble wherever you go. Everything looks different the next day, or the day after that, or the day after that, than if you made the decision right away to do something. Take your time and make wise decisions, not hasty decisions. And then one of the biggies, finances. I was never explained anything about the finances in school, from my parents, anything. I didn't know anything about mortgages. I didn't know anything about loans. And thank God I met a gentleman who was my sergeant while I was in the military. And we were renting an apartment. And he comes up and he says, "Why are you renting? You're going to be stationed here for a couple of years. Buy a house." And I asked, "Why? What's the difference?" He explained all the tax differences, the tax benefits, the deductions, and everything about buying a house, and the increase in value of the house that you can actually make a profit on. From that moment on, I never lived in an apartment again, except for a few months when we had to. So learn finances, learn investment. I've never invested in the stock market. I wish I had. I was always scared to. I went through a couple of stock market collapses where people lost everything. And from then on, I was always scared of the stock market. Should I have been? I don't know. But I do know that if I invested in the stock market like Amazon or anything like that, I'd probably have a lot more money than I have now. So learn your finances. Next, concentrate in life on things that you love and love to do. Your family should come first. If you like golf, go play golf. If you like shooting skills, you go to a range and start shooting. If you like to take nature walks, go take a walk. Study the birds and the bees and the trees. Do what you love. You don't have that much time. Life goes very fast, and you don't realize that until you're towards the end. A big one. Don't worry about what people think. That will stop you doing so many things that you should do I'll give you a great example. We were in Cripple Creek. I started a newspaper. It ended up, I published that for 10 years. But the first one, the city didn't have its own newspaper. The first editorial that I wrote, I was scared shitless. I didn't know how people would take it. I was scared that everybody was going to be pissed at me or hate me or whatever. It turned out just about everybody liked it. Everybody liked having their newspaper. But I was scared shitless. And from then on, I wrote editorials in just about every week. A lot of people didn't like it. A lot of people loved it. I always said, if I got 51% of the people that like it, I'm doing good. The next one is life is short. Be happy. And I mean that. Now, I've already died once. I had a cardiac arrest and died. I was revived. You don't know how short life is until the end. And that could be at any time, believe me, any time. Now, my cardiac arrest, I had 14, 15 years ago. I was in the hospital for about 5 or 6 days. They gave me a defibrillator, all that stuff. And when I got out, I thought, this is the end. I'm going to have another cardiac arrest and they're not going to get to me this time. I was lucky that they were able to get to me and hit me with the paddles and bring me back. There's a couple of good stories there. We'll get to that in another video. But when I got home from it, I started selling everything that I had, all my tools, all kinds of stuff, because I didn't think I was going to be around anymore. Well, little did I know, 15 years later, here I am. I've written books, written songs, I've done all kinds of stuff. So you never know when the end is there. But when it's there, you'll always wish you had more time. And now the last one. Don't lead a life full of stress and anxiety. Like I said before, do things that make you happy. Now, I'm one of 6 kids. I was always trying to keep up with my brothers and sisters that had college degrees and that were real successful in life. One of them was a nurse practitioner. The other one was vice president of a medical supply place. Another one was a court reporter for the federal courts. And then there was me. And they were living some pretty good lives, so I thought. And I was always trying to keep up with them. Don't try to keep up with anybody. Just do what you love. Make sure you don't have the anxiety and stress, because that will definitely shorten your life. If you have something you wish you could have known at 20, let me know in the comments. I might have missed a few. This channel is where I share the lessons, stories, successes, the failures, and experience from a lifetime that's still being lived. If that sounds interesting, I'd love to have you join me. Be sure to subscribe for more. Remember, retirement isn't the end of the story. It's just the beginning of the next chapter. See you next time.